Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. How is everybody doing? Had quite a busy couple of days with the death of the Pope, and we did extensive coverage yesterday. And then we wake up today, and Julia is all over the news. And she has been in court. She is denying the criminal allegations made against her. And she is still on remand at HMP Peterborough. I know some people were concerned that Julia's belongings had been packed up and perhaps she was going to be moved to a different prison. We don't know if that has happened. But if you want to write to Julia's address is in the description box below this video on YouTube, as is the link for Email a Prisoner. Now that we've got Julia's prison number, you can click on that link and you can email her. I know a lot of people have been communicating with her because also below the description box is the free Julia Wandelt Facebook group. And you can always get the latest news and support for Julia in that Facebook group. All right, so let's take a closer look at the story. So the Sun has reported that woman claiming to be Madeleine Mccann denies stalking her parents and siblings by turning up at family home. This came out a few hours ago. Julia Wandelt, also known as Julia Wandel, was arrested as she touched down at Bristol Airport in February. And we all know that sorry story because we were on top of it trying to find out what the hell was going on. They whisked her off, though, to the jurisdiction that the McCanns live in, so she could be processed through that court. And she had traveled from Poland and was due to meet with a friend who lives in Cardiff when she was detained. Today, the 23-year-old appeared at Leicester Crown Court and denied 4 counts of stalking. She is accused of causing serious alarm or distress against Kate and Jerry between May 2nd, 2024 and February 15th this year. She allegedly made unwanted contact with the McCanns, turned up at their addresses, sent letters and WhatsApp messages, and made calls and voicemails. She's also charged with stalking Maddie's sister between January the 3rd and April 21st last year. She's accused of the same charge against Maddie's brother between November 27th and December 29th last year. So also in court with Julia today was Karen Spragg, who is also charged with stalking Maddie's family. And she denied causing serious alarm or distress between May 3rd, 2024 and February 21st this year. So Wandelt is going to remain in custody while Spragg was granted conditional bail. And they are both now scheduled to appear at the same court for trial on October the 2nd. So that is the update, folks. If you're not familiar with the backstory, going back even further, Maddie, of course, vanished on holiday in Praia da Luz, Portugal, with her parents. They went to have a meal, left her in the room, and she was gone. And there's been no trace of her since that horror that happened in 2007 when she was 3 years old. The German police have repeatedly insisted Christian Bruckner as the prime suspect, but so far have been unable to bring any other charges against him. And we interviewed a guy about Bruckner. He is a monster. I'm not saying he did it, but this guy's book is worth a read just to understand the PDF network that was operating. You would never in her wildest dreams of taking a child on holiday to Portugal if you knew the backstory of all the PDFs and the things that were going on in this dark underworld. But yeah, so they've been able to bring any charges against him, and a lot of people think he's just been scapegoated. So Julia became an internet sensation in February 2023 after she posted "I am Madeleine McCann" on Instagram. And of course, that has been weaponized against her. People have said that she said she was Madeleine McCann, and she has apologized for saying that. She said that she's not, and she's mentally ill. And if you go in the Google results, that's what comes up at the top. But actually, she said because no one was paying her any attention or helping her find out who she is, that is why she clickbaited that handle, "I am Madeleine McCann." She didn't do it with any nefarious intent. Mariana's asking, was she denied bail? Yes, she's going to be held in custody until a trial in October, Mariana, unless that trial date is moved. Yeah. So she became, internet famous in February 2023 with that handle, "I am Madeleine McCann." And there's all this debate about the DNA test results. She said that they didn't do a proper DNA test on her. The mainstream media, and that Fear Lady, are all saying that she did, and she's 100% Polish. And then we had the recent DNA results at the end of last year that showed linkage. And then the media just came down and over hammer back to Julia's crazy and stalking and all this stuff. And they just gave Operation Grange another £100,000. Yet it's costing tens of thousands of pounds now for us British taxpayers to house and process Julia when all they had to do was pay £100, a few years ago when she was asking for this, and this whole situation could have been avoided. But there's no common sense in the justice system. And, it must be lovely for Julia to have so many people, a lot of people I can see in the chat right now, such as Mandy Hennessy. Well done, Julia. You're a strong girl. We are all behind you. Just to continue to support her. Because probably without all this support, and if the authorities think they can get away with anything because you've got no family members or friends, next thing you know, you're getting taken over to the mental unit and they're electroshocking you or putting you on some big pharma cocktail MK Ultra meds, and you ain't even going to know who you are by the time you get out. You're just going to be slobbering on yourself and in need of someone to take care of you for the rest of your life. So I think because of the community that Julia has generated with her own authenticity, and the fact that it resonates with so many people, the struggle to find out who you are. And many of you know about my mum's own struggle, tied in with what we did yesterday with the Pope, Catholic Church, Kevin and Annette talking about the Catholic Church forcing people, mothers were having babies out of wedlock, to give them up. And then the Catholic Church making all kinds of money off that. My mother went through that, baby out of wedlock. They told her the mum she was going to burn in hell. And my mum, spent decades trying to find her real parents. So it resonates with me, the struggle that Julia is going through. And, that's all we've ever asked for on this channel, is for the police to have common sense. Just give her a DNA test, get her off your case for God's sake if she's not Maddie, find out if she is or if she isn't. And it didn't have to get to this crazy situation that is cost £60,000 a year to house someone in a UK prison. And then it costs tens of thousands to process someone through the justice system, hundreds of thousands to have a trial. So you're looking at now, the cost of all these parasite industries who like to keep themselves in work by creating work for themselves, hundreds of thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money now going down the toilet to these parasites because they didn't give Julia a DNA test that cost peanuts. And they think we're mad for supporting her. Come on now. What's wrong with these people? So Freedom writes lies. Will she have another application for bail release hearing? Would she be released on bail if she admits guilt? So I don't think any of that is the case, Freedoms, because when you're on remand and you get in front of the judge, if you admit guilt, then he sentences you right away, or he sets a sentencing hearing. And then you go off to prison or you get time served or whatever. So it'd all be over. It'd be resolved very quickly. So admitting guilt is not going to change anything because the main reason that she's probably not out on bail is because she's a flight risk. I had 2, 3 bail hearings, and the prosecutor just kept saying that I was a flight risk because I was not a USA citizen. And she's not a UK citizen. She's Polish. So she constitutes the same flight risk the justice system sees to anyone who's not a UK citizen. So I don't think she's ever going to get bailed out, even if she has bail hearing after bail hearing after bail hearing, like Diddy. I think that is it's just wishful thinking to think that's going to happen. So let me read some of the comments. Joe, the fact that there is not a DNA test done or released immediately when she was detained. Exactly, Joe. Exactly. The police had her DNA when she was arrested in Bristol last year. Why didn't they just announce whether there was a match or not and end this whole madness? Now, none of us here have ever encouraged Julia to have any communication with the McCanns whatsoever. And if Julia had ever brought that up, we would have told her not to. And what's going to happen now? Is she going to go to trial, serve some prison time, and get deported back to Poland, still not knowing who she is, still struggling mentally, and possibly contacting the McCanns again, and this happening over and over and over, so that it's not just costing us taxpayers hundreds of thousands, it goes into the millions. And sometimes I think they're not giving her the DNA test because this is how the justice system stays in business, folks. They have to create work for themselves. The justice system in America is now one of the biggest employers in the world. If you combine the courts and the prisons, one of the biggest employers in the world. And they have to constantly create work for themselves. And it's absolutely sickening that it's got to this when the DNA test could have been done. Just like that, David. Exactly, David. Well said. Well said. So, thanks, Paula. And, when it comes to the McCanns as well, we've got to make sure there's no negative sentiment towards them. It's good that we're all sympathizing for Julia's struggle, but nobody exactly knows what happened to Madeleine McCann. I mean, when I had David Icke on years ago, he thought that she'd been snatched by a PDF ring. And then there's the theory of the lone person who snatched her. There's the theory of Christian. There's the theory of other people close to her being involved. There's just so many different theories, and none of us knows for sure what actually happened, no matter what people says. Wasn't it Tolstoy who said the highest flight of wisdom is to admit that we know nothing? And if that is the case, if we are operating from that premise, then, if the McCanns have suffered the loss of the kid getting abducted, then they're just in a living hell every day as well. And we've got to approach this with compassion, not just for Julia, but for everybody involved. I know there's been a lot of people have done a lot of videos on various channels criticizing them and all kinds of stuff, but we've got to look at this is just a no-win situation for everyone unless Maddie all of a sudden was Julia or was suddenly found. So what's Maz saying? Sean, do you think this new cash flow to Operation Grange is because of Julia? No. If they did the DNA test for Julia and they found out that Julia was, that 100,000 would end, wouldn't it? All the money to Grange would end because it would be solved. So it's a self-perpetuating industry, the Madeleine Mccann case now, where there's just all kinds of legal and political entities involved, more parasites and vampires. It's in their interest that the case is never solved. Just like it's in the interests of vested interest to keep the war going in Ukraine, like the vested interest that Keir Starmer represents, then the vested interests set things in motion to keep these things going. So, Freedoms, please clarify she entered a guilty plea today. All right, so I read the Sun news story. I will read another one and see if we can get a different account of what has happened today. Let's go with the Oxford Mail because that's the jurisdiction she's in. Maybe they got a few more details. And the title here is Women plead not guilty to stalking Madeleine McCann's family. A Polish national who has claimed to be Maddie has pled not guilty to stalking the missing girl's parents and siblings. Julia appeared in the dock at Leicester Crown Court on Tuesday today, accused of causing serious alarm or distress to the family between June 2022 and Feb 2025. The court previously heard Julia is accused of making calls and leaving voicemails and sending a letter and WhatsApp messages to Kate and Jerry and the kids. And it was on the kids. It was via Instagram. Oh, excuse me. Got the old local honey needed for the pollen. Karen of Cardiff, who was also alleged to have made calls, sent letters, and attended the home address of the McCanns, denied the charge of stalking. Julia from Poland claimed to be the missing girl on Instagram. We've covered that. So in court today, Julia spoke to confirm her name was Julia Wandelt, according to the documents, and to enter a plea during the hearing. She's alleged to have attended the family home on May 2nd and December 7th last year, according to the previous court appearance. And she was arrested at Bristol Airport in Feb. God, I thought it was last year. Was it any Feb? All right. She was remanded back into custody by Judge Timothy Spencer KC to appear in court in August to decide if she will be granted bail. Right, so the first article in The Sun said the trial is in October, and this article in the Oxford Mail is giving slightly more details, is saying there's a bail hearing in August. That's interesting. So April, May, June, July, August, 4 more months. But she's been denied bail so many times. I don't see it happening because of her foreign status. Karen Sprague stood in the dock beside Julia, charged with 1 count of stalking causing serious alarm or distress. She was granted bail with conditions not to contact the McCanns and their kids and their family friends, not to enter, 2 family friends that is, not to enter Leicestershire unless attending court, and to live and sleep at her home address. Both women will appear at the same court for trial on October the 2nd. And Maddie's disappearance at the age of 3 in Portugal remains unsolved. And if anyone wants to communicate directly with Julia, if you want to write to her, the address is in the description box below this video if you're watching it on YouTube. And also, there's the link for emailing a prisoner. And I'm assuming that, well, you should be able to write to her from any country in the world. I'm assuming that the email a prisoner works if you're overseas as well. I don't know 100%. Maybe someone can tell me now. Let me see. What else people are saying in the chat? Ask Keir Starmer about the disappearance of Maddie. Yeah. The justice system, this is from Sarah, should force everyone else's DNA now just to end it for all of them. What if she is Maddie and they locked up their own daughter? Can you imagine, Sarah? Can you imagine? Wow. Katie, if I left my child and this hardened, my DNA would be there before even asking. Yeah, indeed. There are too many high profiles involved in the cover-up and are profiting. Exactly. It is an industry. The taxpayers' money goes to the government into a feeding trough. And all of the vested interests, whether they are military companies, whether they are big pharma, they are all trying to get the evil schnozzes into that feeding trough so they can lock some of that money down for themselves. They're licking their lips, slobbering, budging each other out the way, buttering up the politicians via donations, political donations, lobbyists. It's all one big parasitic, incestuous money go round, absolutely obscene. And the government is doing everything they can to create problems so that they can give their cronies that money and not take care of the real concerns of the British people. Which is why we have got Paul Golding coming on, the leader of Britain First, at 9 p.m. today. You asked for me to interview more political leaders. We are doing it. Right, Mariana, it is reported the judge wasn't happy with McCann's wanting to be screened at the trial. They did not want to be present showing their faces. Interesting. I'll have to look for that report later on. Rocky Mountain, the whole wide system is so very broken. Those who truly need to be in jail are set free, and virtually no one is truly protecting the littles. They don't give a crap about the littles, Rocky Mountain. You would think protecting the littles would be the utmost importance to the justice system. But they don't give a crapola. Otherwise, they wouldn't be allowing the industrial scale R-wording of teenage girls across the country by the gangs. The gangs, the survivors of which we have been interviewing. We had a very interesting panel the other week with Maggie Oliver and two of the survivors. Gemma was in tears. It's absolutely heartbreaking that the government doesn't give a crap about us. We are like cattle, just to be monetized, whether it's through the jab, and all the jab narrative is unraveling right now, whether it's through the prison industrial complex, the military industrial complex, like Keir Starmer cares about the people of Ukraine. Keeping the war going, they're just causing the death of more people in Ukraine. And they've frozen $250 billion in Russian assets. And the longer the war goes, the longer they get to keep the interest on that $250 billion in Russian assets. Keir Starmer and his cronies. Can you imagine how much money that is, the interest on $250 billion? And that's just one of the scams they're running with the war in Ukraine. It breaks my heart for the people of Ukraine that all these young men mostly have died in the meat grinder. And now France and the UK want to send our lads to die in the meat grinder so Keir Starmer's cronies can count their pennies going clink, clink, clink as they rack up the interest on the $250 billion in frozen Russian assets. Absolute parasites. Yeah, would love to get some Ukrainian voices on the channel as well. Would love to get some debates going on that. A lot of the people we interview have reached out to us, or they've been suggested to us on our YouTube streams. But my friend Andrew Gold just had Douglas Murray on his channel. He's pro Ukraine, and I am not anti-Ukraine. I am pro-peace, and my heart goes out to the people of Ukraine. But just because we've had people on who have studied geopolitics